Some very nice things, and we'll refer to these indirectly today, but we won't discuss them directly. So, basically I'd like to talk about 10 fundamental ideas of a market economy. If I have a flip chart I can get to, maybe I should do this way. By the way, I'm like this person. I took Joe's test one time and I had a 10 and a 9. So I'm out there. So let's say 10 ideas. 10 principles. The first one, most important principle of economics, is scarcity. Without scarcity, we wouldn't have to study economics. There would be no need. There would be no need to make choices. Scarcity is the basis for the economic way of thinking. You know, we live in such an affluent society. We're so profoundly wealthy. We forget about the fact of scarcity. We forget that things are scarce. I mean, our economy is so productive. We have so much accumulated capital. We have such advanced technology that things are so abundant that we forget that things are scarce. But they are scarce, and scarcity is the fundamental factor in the economic problem. Capital, labor, land, and entrepreneurship are still scarce, so consequently the things that can be produced with capital, labor, land, and entrepreneurship are still scarce, and so our productive inputs are scarce, consequently outputs are scarce that we can use those for. We have to think about efficiency because of scarcity. I'm an economist. I'm always preoccupied with the question of efficiency. I like efficiency. It gives me satisfaction when I see something that works very efficiently. That's because I'm concerned with scarcity. Efficiency tells me we're getting the absolute most we can out of our inputs. Or if we're going to produce something, we're using as few inputs as possible to do that. And that's good because they're scarce. So scarcity leads to a thinking about efficiency. And sometimes we forget about scarcity. We think that things are free, and things are not free. Second element of our economic way of thinking. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If you have anything you'd like to add, please feel free to do so. I'd like to keep this very informal, like a seminar. Keep it it's a small group, and keep it casual. Our second element of our economic way of thinking, choices. Scarcity compels us to make choices. People are insatiable. Society is insatiable. Government is insatiable. Insatiability is where it's at. Needs and wants are unlimited, but resources with which we can satisfy those needs and wants are limited. Consequently, we have to make choices. Some people say economics is the science of choice. You know, if I tell someone I'm an economist, they usually say, oh, you can probably balance your checkbook to the penny. No, I can't. I've only done that 1 or 2 times in my life. They say you can do your own taxes. I've just started doing that. Economics is really about choice. What choices do we have to make? It's always nice to think about our problems in terms of choices. So there's only 2 ways of choosing. We will see public and private. And Parth Shah is going to talk about public choice and private choice. Public choice theory. He'll talk about political markets and private markets. If we're going to make choices about how we use our scarce resources, we can do so privately through markets, or we can do so publicly using government. They're 2 alternative institutional arrangements for choice. Choosing privately, you go to work in the market, you sell your labor, you rent your labor, you get paid income for that, you take it, and you go to the store and you buy Twinkies. It's your choice. You earn your money, you spend it as you see fit. Private choices in a private market. In public choices, what you do in a democratic system, you vote for elected officials that purport to spend your tax revenue, your tax dollars in a way that you prefer. You vote for elected representatives. They then tax you, accumulate that tax revenue, and spend it in a way that they think you desire. Okay, and it's an indirect process. You don't choose directly when you choose publicly. These are alternative mechanisms for choice. In some sense, they're complementary. In some sense, they're substitutes. You know, you don't have under pure communism, you have pure public choice. Under anarchy, you have pure private choice. But we have a mixed economy that mixes public and private choice. I prefer private choice. I'd rather see a larger proportion of private choice in our economy, but we have some public choices, and there's a place for public choice. Milton Friedman once said, in private choice, you get what you want, and under public choice, you get what others think you ought to have. And that's why I like private choice. It's a clearer signal, and it's a clearer process. So choices are important. Our third element of our economic way of thinking is opportunity cost. Opportunity cost, as you probably know, is the value of the next best alternative foregone when you choose something. So when we choose, we must give something else up because resources are scarce. Resources can be used in a finite number of ways. When we choose to use them one way, we give something else up. The value of the next best foregone alternative is the opportunity cost of some choice or some decision. And opportunity cost tells us about what we're giving up. As an economist, I have a couple of questions that I always want to ask. Number one, who pays? Who's doing the giving up? You know, in private choice, it's pretty simple. I mean, you buy the Twinkie and you pay. But in public choice, there's opportunities for redistribution. So the person who gets the Twinkie isn't necessarily the person who pays for the Twinkie. And so there's a question of who pays. As an economist, I want to know who pays. Who pays that opportunity cost? Second, how much will it cost? How much is it going to cost? That sounds like a naive question, but people often enter into writing of blank checks, particularly under public choices. They don't consider how much it's really going to cost. What's everything that's being given up? What's the full opportunity cost? Not just costs that are explicit, but costs that might be implicit and unseen as well. So what's the full cost? How much? Third, what else are we giving up? If we have more of one thing, what is it that we're giving up? Because resources are scarce. If we have more of something, we have to have less of something else. What is it that we're giving up? When we choose to use resources some way, what is it that we're giving up? If we want more health care, what are we giving up? If we want more health care, who pays for it? How much is it really going to cost? What else are we giving up? Who's giving it up? They sound like simple questions, but they're really very fundamental, basic, and important questions. And I always ask, if we want more of this, what else is it that we're going to give up? Who's giving it up? How much is being given up? So that's an element of an economic way of thinking, a fundamental element of an economic way of thinking. So it's also useful in terms of what we're giving up and costs to think about secondary effects as well. Good economists, good decision makers don't just look at primary effects. They look at secondary effects as well. So when you undertake a decision or enact some policy, there are immediate primary effects. There are also secondary effects that are often unseen, unintended, but very large. So it's sometimes called the law of unintended consequences. There's a law of unintended consequences. Every action that everybody takes has unintended consequences. And that's true when economic choices are made, and that's true when economic policies are undertaken. There are unintended consequences. So for example, aid to families for dependent children. The intended immediate effect is to ameliorate poverty among single mothers. The unintended consequence and the secondary effect is to perpetuate a culture of welfare dependency. People didn't think about that when they designed the program initially. They saw the immediate and primary consequences and ignored the secondary and unintended consequences. So it's a good example. Take increasing the money stock, making the money supply grow more rapidly, a macroeconomic example. Make the money stock grow more rapidly, it's beautiful. Interest rates fall, people can buy more houses, businesses can invest in more factories and plant and equipment, the economy hums along, GDP grows rapidly, unemployment falls, immediate primary consequence. What's the unintended long-term consequence of increasing the money stock?
Cheapens it?
Cheapens it. How does that appear? when the value of money falls, the value of money gets debased. What do we call that? Prices go up. It's inflation. Exactly. It's inflation. Inflation or debasement of the currency is the same thing. That's an unintended consequence. Somebody once said, printing of the money is like the party and the inflation is like the hangover. That's an unintended consequence, an unintended secondary effect of an increase in the money stock. And good economists and good economic decision makers are conscious of those.